Rain turned to steam whenever it struck the city's old brickwork, hissing like a chorus of kettles that never quite reached a boil. Even without open flames, the place always smelled faintly scorched, burned metal from induction grids, ozone from arc lamps, fear from 6 million citizens whose very blood could ignite. I kept to the alleys, hood up, hands jammed into my coat to hide the scars that branded me a traitor, twin spirals the Bureau used to stamp every detective's wrists, once a badge of honor, now a permanent warrant. 3 months ago, I was Captain Mara Kincaid, the Metro Fire Bureau's chief arson detective. Tonight, I was the woman they blamed whenever someone burst into flame without a match in sight. They called them spontaneous combustions, but the feeds preferred a flashier tag: Ember, execution's proof. The governors insisted that the rebel Ember faction was terrorizing us with invisible fire. Citizens swallowed the story because it was easier than believing the truth might be worse. I wanted the truth. A new body had gone up 2 hours earlier in a crowded Skytram. 30 passengers and crew packed inside a carbon fiber coffin hovered 600 meters above East Bank, and one of them exploded in a ribbon of blue-white heat. No spark, no accelerant, no survivors. The governors pinned it on the rebels before the ashes cooled. I reached the cordon just as drones reeled the tram's blackened fuselage onto the landing girders. Uniformed bureau techs scanned for contraband flames, pointless theater, but protocol ruled everything now. I skirted the perimeter until I spotted Pharaoh leaning against a maintenance stand, cigarilla smoldering between 2 fingers. He'd never break the ban on the street, but bureau grounds were exempt. They were convinced they alone could be trusted with fire. I waited until Pharaoh exhaled a tired ribbon of smoke, then stepped from the shadows. "That'll kill you faster than the air these days." He stiffened, turning just enough for the arc lamps to reveal the hollows beneath his eye. "Kincaid? They said you fled to Hinterland. They say lots of things." I nodded toward the tram carcass. "Who was the spark?" He shuddered. "Kid named Lee, 17. No priors, no gang marks, no rebel chatter tags." "Same pathology?" "Same as the last 4. Coagulated residue fused to cabin walls, microfractures in the ceramic floor, pressure spike before ignition, meaning the kid's blood had reached flash point and detonated from inside. No external fire needed. Flammable blood. That was the gift the Prometheus virus gave us 4 years ago. Airborne, incurable, harmless until it met an open flame. Then arteries doubled as fuse wire and people turned into living Molotovs. Civilization banned combustion overnight. Anything hotter than 250 Celsius was a felony. We thought that was enough. Apparently not. I glanced around. "Let me inside the hull," Pharaoh winced. "If they catch me aiding you, I could turn you in for that cigarillo right now." He ground the stub beneath his boot and muttered a curse. 5 minutes later, I was sliding through a breach in the tram's belly, while a patrol drone conveniently looped the far side of the wreck. The interior was a charred nest, but Ember suits, nanofiber overalls with polarizing gel, kept the greasy soot from clinging to my skin. Spots of silver glimmered on the bulkhead, not metal human calcium, vaporized and redeposited. I found the victim's seat, a warped titanium frame bolted to the floor, seatbelts fused into a single twisted ribbon. In the center, a lump of glass curled like frozen smoke. I crouched, thumbed on my spectrometer, and let it hum. Phosphorus, potassium, iron. Normal blood minerals, but spiked to 10 times baseline. And something else. Faint echoes of nitrocellulose polymers. Explosives inside a bloodstream? No. I'd seen this before in early Prometheus casualties. When the virus metabolized hemoglobin for too long, it excreted unstable nitrates. We believe the concentration plateaued safely below flashpoint, so long as no flame entered the equation. The tram victims' titers said otherwise. That changed everything. I slipped back through the breach. Pharaoh fidgeted by the stand. "You satisfied?" "Terrified," I said. "Has medical flagged anomalous nitrate counts?" "Not that I've heard." "Of course not. Keep your ears open." "And Pharaoh, thanks." I tapped 2 fingers to the spiral scar on my wrist. He returned the gesture, the old salute, grudging but genuine. I vanished down the service ladder before guilt made him change his mind. Tell me about the first time you saw your husband comes. Tamsden. Kincaid. Frost. The underground hostels beneath Old Harbor had no cameras, just algae-lit corridors and silt that sifted from cracked seawalls. And opened a secure link to the only analyst who still answered my calls. Tamsin's face flickered onto the pad, haloed by the humming server she ran out of an abandoned cryonics wing. You're supposed to be dead, Kincaid. Working on it. I need blood work for the last 5 combustion victims' full titers, nitrates, transfusion history. She raised a brow. That data's sealed? Since when has that stopped you? A grin tugged her lips. Since never? Give me an hour. 37 minutes later, a file package pinged my pad. I scrolled. Every victim had received a Prometheus suppressant transfusion within 48 hours before combustion. Same supplier, Vitalis Therapeutics. Vitalis was a public-private darling, born after the burn laws required monthly blood screening. They patented a phage that muzzled Prometheus, reducing flammability risk to near zero. At least, that was the marketing. Governors subsidized the treatment, and citizens queued for the jab because no one wanted to explode on their commute. Looks like the muzzle had slipped. I keyed the map overlay. Vitalis's main production campus sprawled over the old freight yards outside city limits, 10 hectares of bioreactors guarded like a fusion plant. I wasn't walking through the front gate, but every facility pulled potable water from the same aquifer tunnels that laced the bedrock. My outlaw status had one perk. When you're already condemned, nothing's off the table. Midnight found me wading waist-deep through a maintenance conduit that smelled of bleach and fungus. The polar gel in my ember suit kept the chill at bay, though my teeth still rattled when I reached the grate beneath Vitalis's South Lab wing. I cut the mesh with a vibroblade, hauled myself into a sump chamber, and followed a ladder to an inspection hatch. Security would be lighter here. Most crews hated the tang of disinfectant down tunnels, and drones corroded too fast in the vapor. Still, I listened before cracking the hatch. Silence. I climbed out into a corridor lit by green emergency strips. Locks were biometric, but I'd lifted a master thumbprint from a bureau patrolman weeks back. One smear on the gel foil and the door slid open, into a storage bay stacked with blood bags pulsing crimson under cold UV. I pulled a random pouch, scanned the label, then tapped a microneedle through the port. A droplet fizzed as it hit the test slide. Combustion potential reading 94%. Street blood rarely hit 20. So Vitalis collected hypervolatile stock, then claimed their phage suppressed it? Either their therapy failed, or success was never the goal. Footsteps. I shoved the pouch back, ducked behind a crate. 2 men entered in chem-slick lab coats. One carried a case bearing the governor's sigil. Shipment ready for Capitol by dawn, one said. They want a public dose on camera when the next rebel sweep airs. The other snorted. As if optics will matter once Phase 2 rolls out. Give it 3 days, half the city will be ashes, and the governors will blame whatever's left of the embers. Cold spread through my gut. Phase 2. After they left, I slid into the corridor, heart hammering. I had evidence, but not proof anyone would trust. The governors controlled every feed. I needed something undeniable. A server farm hummed at the corridor's end. The lock's light flashed amber, security clearance only. My stolen print wouldn't pass. I knelt, popped the panel, rerouted the circuit to bypass the biometric and trigger a fire drill. Irony was a bitter taste on my tongue. Cigaretting an alarm centered on combustion in a building that risked immolating itself with every heartbeat of the blood inside. Klaxons wailed. Doors unlatched automatically. Fire safeties mandated an open egress so staff could escape without touching metal heated by hypothetical flames. I slipped into the server room while whitecoats scrambled the opposite way. Rows of racks blinked. I jacked in, set my pad to ghost, and dumped everything. Lab notebooks, board minutes, military memos. Keywords lit the screen. Weaponized nitrification, contingency burn, population reset. The plan was simple. Load citizens with a booster guaranteed to stay inert so long as no flame touched them. Stage rebel attacks with illicit fire. Let blood bombs justify martial law and cleanse dissent. Prometheus wasn't a crisis, it was the governor's matchstick. I pocketed the drive, but the drill timer hit 90 seconds. Doors would reseal. I sprinted back toward the sump ladder. Too late, a squad of black-visored security troopers rounded the corner. Hands up. No smokescreen, no exits, just a wall of men with shock darts. I raised my arms. Then a hiss split the air. One guard's visor spider-webbed, and he collapsed with a dart in his own neck. Faro stepped out of a side passage, pulse rifle cradled. "Thought you might need a hand." "I told you to keep clear," he shrugged. "You're lousy at orders these days." We ducked into a decontam chamber while he barred the door. "How'd you find me?" The patrol net lit up about an intruder. "Only one I know, dumb enough." Alarm shifted pitch. A real containment alert now, not my drill. Gas flooded vents. Vitalis weren't letting us torch their secret. Problem was the gas was Halon variant non-flammable, sure, but toxic in minutes. Faro scanned the ducts. "We need air, or we need out." I glanced at the decontam nozzles. Pressurized nitrogen used to blow microbes off suits. Enough force to rupture the glass wall if the seal's released. I overrode the panel, cranked the line pressure. The nozzle screeched, glass shattered outward, and we stumbled onto a loading catwalk above an ocean of blood bags swaying from steel trees. Red reflections rippled across the walls like we'd stepped into some arterial cathedral. Below, 2 squads advanced. Faro fired suppression bursts, but we were trapped. Unless we embraced blasphemy. I ripped a flare stick from my belt. Illegal to own, suicidal to use, but phosphorus burned underwater. The very idea of an open flame in this place felt obscene. Yet if Vitalis wanted to control fire, I could show them what uncontrolled looked like. "We drop?" Faro yelled over gunfire. "Not exactly." I yanked a bag from its hook, stabbed it open. Nitrate-rich blood rained onto the catwalk. Another bag, another tear. The metal decking slicked crimson. Guards hesitated, fearful of stray sparks. Indeed, one arc dart discharged against a rail, spitting electrons. The blood mist flashed, whoomph, a shock wave of heat that knocked troops sprawling. Flames climbed like liquid fire, devouring oxygen in hungry gulps. Ferris stared at me. "You'll bring the roof down." "That's the plan." We followed the catwalk to a blast vent, flames licking our heels. I popped the hatch and shoved Faro into the chute. Heat seared my back as I slid after him. We tumbled into an aquifer spillway where water sluiced over us, dousing residual sparks. Above, a muffled roar, then a concussive boom rattled the tunnel. Vitalis' secret burned. News feeds the next morning pulsed with footage of the blaze. Officials blamed rebel saboteurs, of course, but something was different this time. Citizen vids showed the fireball blooming out of a facility supposedly too safe to ignite. Hashtags like Blood Truth and Vital Lie seeded across the mesh faster than sensors could delete them. Tamsin had leaked the files we'd stolen. Every damning memo, every nitrate chart. The governors issued statements in triplicate, but no one listened. The world was busy counting how many booster jabs they'd taken. Faro and I holed up in a derelict observatory perched above the fog. He watched the skyline, where smoke still drifted pink in sunrise light. "You think we stopped phase 2? "Delayed it," I said. "But the virus didn't start with Vitalis. Governors will find another lab." "So we keep burning them." I took a breath, tasted iodine from distant sirens. "No, that's their game fire and fear. We need a cure." He laughed, a bitter crack. "You going back to the Bureau for that?" "I'm going back to science," I said. "Someone engineered Prometheus once. Someone can unmake it." Below, streets filled with people carrying mirrors to reflect solar panels. Light protests, symbol of heat without flame. Children chalked phoenix wings on pavement, their laughter clear despite the clamor. For the first time in months, the city's constant kettle hiss sounded less like dread and more like water poised to sing. I thought of the scars spirals on my wrists, once meant to signify guardians of flame. Maybe it was time they meant something else. I rolled down my sleeves, stood, and pointed east, where the river cut through skyscrapers like a silver fuse. "Come on, Faro, storm's not over." but we're done playing with matches. We descended the hill as dawn set the clouds ablaze in harmless, radiant light, a reminder that not all fires have to burn.